So I hope you appreciate this little tour under the hood to understand how the plan really works. And I think knowing it really can help you do the right thing. Because if you don't know how it affects things, you may, out of entrepreneurial zeal, try to take shortcuts or do something that's not really going to benefit your business and at the same time doesn't work for the company. These principles are what make the MPCP work. And these are the things that allow it to fly or defy gravity. And at the same time are the sound business building principles that make your business grow faster and solid. So they work together. So there's other factors that affect the MPCP working as intended, where it works efficiently at its best for profitability and soundly in order to last. So you got to know these principles. When you cross the line on them, it's going to hurt your business long run or maybe short term, and it's going to stress the plan. And eventually we have to stop it because we're not going to allow anything to affect the longevity of the residual income with the plan. So this one, I went over last session in some depth about mixing BV and IBV, that it doesn't work, and it involves two different cost profit models for the company, complicating matters, but more importantly, it causes the BV and IBV banks to compete and work antagonistically, displacing each other rather than working synergistically and in alignment with the shopping annuity and SAM program. So you can read the rest of the slide. I'm going to go on to the next one. Another very important factor to understand is the BV-IBV cap is there for a reason on a UFO BV, BDC, and it's a very important tenet of the binary binomial plan. It's designed to require additional volume over the threshold, top level of accumulation, and the scale that we go up. So when it's reached at the end of a cycle, the additional volume isn't really overflow. It inures to the benefit of the other UFOs in the two legs so that they qualify rather than just the top guy making all the money and getting all the volume. And it's often mischaracterized as overflow, but it inures to the benefit of the other UFOs in the two legs to qualify. Then by reaching the top of the scale too and cycling weekly, as well as in order to secure the income of the UFOs reaching the cap that are upline. So it makes everybody eventually hit the maximum income of a BDC rather than one guy at the top making more and more. And it works perfectly. So you could go through these points, but it's a dynamic in the plan that really is almost kind of magical. You cannot earn without other people earning. And when somebody reaches the top, they can multiply their income vertically. They're not limited, but it's automatically creating stability and security by other people earning. So vertical multiplication of income is a major tenet and philosophy of the plan. We don't want to do anything to violate that. Everything that you earn after capping out is done in a vertical fashion, either in your 001 or your 002 or your 003, and then re-entries. And that multiplies your income. At the same time, there's teamwork. You're getting help doing it, but everybody else benefits. So as you multiply income, you're not spreading yourself thin, but you're securing your income by other people earning at the same time. And when you go to earn more, it's basically down vertically under them, but it counts for your top income centers, securing them or vesting them. For instance, your 002 and 003 kind of vest or guarantee the 001. When you do re-entries, that volume also counts for the 002 and 003, so those re-entries are vesting the 002 and 003, and you're multiplying your income, but at the same time helping everyone else. So you don't want to do anything that's going to dilute or go against that grain or that philosophy or that principle. Then a greatly overlooked aspect of the plan is the PC, or preferred customer system. It's really a tracking fulfillment system that maximizes a UFO's efficiency and allows them to build a huge, profitable, secure customer base online and without any additional overhead, resources, or time commitment. It frees up their time to expand as well as secures their business. It automatically documents and satisfies the retail requirements and activity requirements, Form 1000, the 70% rule, and compliance, and provides metrics for personalized customer offers. So that's really an incredible feature. It was utilized a lot for a while, and then people started moving their customers off of it to, basically win promotions or do the shopping annuity bonus pool. And again, it's not the right way. It's just robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it doesn't build a solid business. This is an incredible feature that you can have hundreds of customers. No matter where they go, you're protected. You always get credit for them. They can lead to customers, and it always attaches them back to your BDC, and you get credit no matter where they are in the world, what products they order. So it's really a sound system where you don't have to have inventory, you don't have to ship the product, you don't have to process the credit cards. And you can do it if you want, because you have a relationship or the proximity or location of the customer. It makes more sense. You've got that option. But it's also a very powerful benefit that doesn't normally exist with other types of direct sales or network marketing companies or product marketing companies. So that's a great benefit, and you don't want to do anything that's going to dilute the customer base or jeopardize it where somebody else could end up with those customers. And this is kind of like an insurance policy that your customers are your customers and you own them. Okay, so when we look at the business and the binary binomial system, there's two fundamental functions that are the building blocks that make it solid from the bottom up. All UFOs should be working at the bottom level, okay, of the organization, sponsoring and assisting in duplication and the basic five. Just think of building a skyscraper or a business as big as you want. If the foundation crumbles or the foundation isn't solid or it won't support the organization because it's not real, or they're not doing the right things, or they don't have customers, or not regenerating sales, you have a structure that is shaky. So it's built from the bottom up is the principle, and then the BV/IBV accrues up, giving everyone 100% credit to infinity without dilution for 1 year, and everyone benefits, creating economic glue between the blocks, between the UFOs. And those that build faster are not punished for those who don't. The volume waits for those that are slower, and then you have infinite search. So even if those people aren't doing that much business and it keeps going, eventually it's going to lead to somebody that does. And that goes all the way up to you to guarantee your income. These type of things don't exist elsewhere. So downline placement of newly sponsored UFOs and reentries and not BV is a solid building principle, because it's placing at the baseline or the foundation regenerated volume, production, rather than dilution. So you're getting more and more compounding of business by placing people that are doing the business by continuing to sponsor down below. Remember, we don't have to do it in width, but because we build it in two vertical lines to be more profitable and build security at the same time, doesn't mean that you stop doing it. It's actually designed to do it more because the system handles more, because you're not wide and spread thin, but everybody is on the same team working together. So downline placement of newly sponsored UFOs and reentries, not BV, is really what downline placement always was. Really don't know where this thing came from, but downline placement of BV is a bad practice and promotes expectation and weakness and lowers the productivity. You know, there's a few rare situations that I'll go over where it's useful. And the company in the top 10 levels were not created from this type of activity, placing volume downline. They would sponsor downline. They would re-enter. Know that when downline BV placement may be beneficial, there are some cases where it's actually in line with the principles that make the MPCP work, and a good thing. And generally it creates the wrong expectation though. Someone starts expecting to be given volume that they didn't create. Rather than getting out and building it. It invokes the law of decreasing returns, but it's better to assist the junior partners in a downstream team by working with them and the placement of newly sponsored UFOs under them and then reentries. And when everybody's doing that, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger rather than weaker and weaker by somebody else doing it for them. After a while, you got to do it all. So I want you to read this carefully because this is a very important concept or principle that the business is based on that you have to embed into your cerebral cortex if you're going to do things right. So other marketing plans and systems are based on finite math. They pay out a certain percentage and flexible fixed tiered matrix, and all the volume is reset to zero at the end of the month. It's over, and then they start again. They pay out a fixed percentage of 32% to 50%. That's the norm or the average, and then they reset the volume to zero at the end of the month. The obvious shortcoming of that is that distributors that do not reach payout brackets or thresholds lose the volume, and the upline makes all of the money. They have to start over every month at zero, and they get no credit for what was done in the past. Rather discouraging. Larger leaders or distributors have to replace volume of managers breaking away and must continuously recruit just to stay even. Such plans operate on breakage, and an upline makes money on the downline making less as a result. That's a negative incentive. And there is no breakage in the MPCP accrual system because overflow works to earn someone else's income, securing the leg, which ultimately determines long-term profitability through stability. And you need them both, profitability and stability. And the accrual allows everyone to win, regardless of their timing, and it eliminates the need for symmetrical fills, inventory loading, and does not punish someone for progressing faster or slower or being unbalanced. It all works out, and they have the opportunity to do what's necessary to still get paid. So also there is no infinite search in other programs, which results in not getting credit for growth or business under a fixed number of levels. It's usually 3 to 5. And it's a much simpler program for the company to run, but it's to the disadvantage of the field. Really, there was no other system before this. This broke the sound barrier. It defied gravity, and you have it, and you don't need to find ways to tinker with it that might make it work not as well for yourself and could stress the plan where we have to stop certain activities to preserve the stability and the longevity of the MPCP and the residual income that so many people count on and love. But it has rigid limitations and rules and principles, and that's what I'm trying to teach you. What is, and what isn't. And these things must be followed in order for it to even be possible. So these do not adversely affect any UFO's business, the things that need to be in place. Actually, the reverse is true. If they're adhered to, it helps their business. And so when you follow them, the plan works. When you don't follow them, your business doesn't work, and it ends up making the plan not work, and that's where we have to draw the line. So the binomial MPCP is based on a different set of principles. What are the statistical proven production averages of a UFO or a participant that wants to be an entrepreneur in a home-based business? They're very realistic. It's 2.84, and you only are required to build 2 legs. So it's less than the average. It eliminates gross breakage where one entity, the UFO, the company, the leader, the upline, or the customer, makes money or wins at the expense or the detriment or dilution of the other. That's one of the key principles of the program. I make more by you making less. That doesn't happen here. You don't want to do anything that upsets that dynamic equilibrium that's so powerful in the plan. The mathematical variables or equations and the actuarial or probability math determine the production requirements to reconcile economically. Like insurance, when the risk is higher, there has to be a higher premium to offset the mathematics in the actuarial equation. So it's the same thing here. If you keep taking shortcuts and change that fundamental model, the requirements might have to change in order for it to work. So it's so great and so perfect the way it is, and it's been proven for 27 years. Let's not mess with it. Let's just keep working a great thing and make it happen. But structure and function patterns or models mimic reality in this plan. An example is the movie example. Tiers don't have to fill out. You don't have to redistribute products. It's just the same way you develop your circle of friends. It happens naturally. Or like going to a movie and telling people and it virally spreading. That's how the plan works. It follows reality, the way things really happen in life. And that's why it works so well if you stick to it. So the rules of the game, the rules of math and probability are very important. And so you need to be aware of them. So anything that you come up with or anything that you do that stresses these or goes against the grain is going to cause a problem. It's going to cause a problem in your own business, but it's also going, if more and more people do it, it's going to cause a problem for the MPCP and the company, and we're going to have to tighten up or plug that hole. So passivity must be prevented. I mean, it's just common sense. If you add more people that really aren't doing it and stick volume in there and everybody's getting credit, okay, and there's more payouts on the same volume with no new volume, it's going to raise the payout. A moron can figure that out. So why would you want to try to do that for your own personal gain? It becomes self-defeating. Well, if you do it, we're going to stop it because we have to worry about the longevity for everybody who's worked so hard to develop a residual income. So passivity must be prevented, and it's the nemesis of the plan and works against it. And when it exceeds set limits, causes the MPCP payout or commissions to grow until it exceeds revenue and implodes. It makes the established naturally occurring probability or actuarial parameters to become invalid. And that's why we get so worked up and are so strict about this. And that's why I'm educating you now. There's no need to do it. It works perfect the way it is. So one person doing the business for another person, or the introduction of people in the accumulation line of volume to synthetically load volume or to collect checks, results in additional volume placed in a way that increases payout by placing the volume where it will synthetically cause a payout that would not happen naturally. So it's done in a way that affects the model by introducing a BDC and BV or IBV exactly where it needs to go to force a payout after the natural real growth from retail accounts, repeat accounts, new UFOs qualifying that week are measured, and the additional unencumbered volume, unencumbered meaning unsold, bought, orders, placed, are put into a fake person or maybe one of your own centers or a relative and are added in after the fact. They see the way it is and they're able to place that volume. That's why it's important in downline placement to fix the locations and limit them. So this is why the same household rule and other prohibitions against going into the back office or keeping people active or creating fake centers are prohibited, and we're very strict about it because it just has to be that way. But why do it? The plan works great the way it is. So the plan is dependent on mathematically on two things: very important. Regenerated volume by each participant who is allowed to accrue volume or is in line to receive commissions. Everyone who accumulates or earns must meet production requirements themselves. That's the deal. And it's necessary mathematically. You can't have more and more people in there doing nothing, passive, getting credit for what other people do and earning just like they earn. So the new volume generated for a new participant to accrue volume toward earning and over time to receive commissions from the MPCP, okay, has to be done. A person has to add their new qualification and then sponsor two people that do their qualification in order to be able to get checks. So there's ratios involved in this. It's a mathematical series of equations, formulas, and calculus with timing, and it works the way it's designed. So we can't let things, circumvent that. And there's an amazing third thing. It's kind of amazing, at least to me, that legally there must be an ongoing sales and supervisory function and contribution to the growth of their business from personal effort rather than solely on the efforts of others. Otherwise, it could be deemed a security. But the math and regulatory requirement and the resulting effect of this as a best practice for building residual income are all synergistic and work together. So by doing it right, not only are we in totally safe harbor regulatorily or legally, but it also is profitable and good for your business and good for the company's business and a perfect union. So this is do it right. The cap out on BDCs and vertical duplication and multiplication to increase income is critical. Anything that violates that, like trying to switch lines, borrow volume from another line, take people from another line, all of that is just destructive. And you don't belong here if you are motivated to do that or constantly thinking about it and trying to do it. Just do it right. It works perfectly. So the dynamics of multiplying profitability and compounding effect of strengthening the baseline comes from building from the bottom up in two lines and everybody doing their part, and then you got a win-win-win-win-win situation. The accrual period, this is another principle that makes the plane fly and affects things, and you got to be aware of it. The length of the accrual period is determined by what the MPCP can tolerate mathematically under the defined set of requirements and parameters. 1 year has been proven for 25 years. Now, what if it was 10 years? Well, obviously, if that volume stays in there that long, there's more and more opportunities in the weak leg to do something to cause more payouts on the same volume that was already paid out on. So there has to be a limit to the length of accrual. 1 year is more than adequate, more than anybody else gets. So obviously, simple logic dictates that the longer the accrued volume stays in the system, the more payouts on accrued volume can occur in the future. So in our program, it's not over at the end of the month. It doesn't reset to zero. There's still volume and unpaid commissions out there, and they have to happen according to rules in the system in order for the whole thing to work. So the addition of a state-of-the-art, unparalleled, unfranchised back office makes the MPCP vulnerable to manipulation and synthetic loading of volume or manipulation. Now, in the old days, this was impossible. It was virtually impossible. Seeing where the volume stands at the end of the week or its migration and changes over a month creates the temptation to break the rules to create payouts. So going into someone else's back office to keep them active or to place orders or move customers or add fake or controlled centers causes the system to be stressed and eventually fail. We can't have that. So episodes that demonstrate this are, the SABP program. Beautiful program, was ruined and defeated its purpose and cost the company $20 million. It's happened with the HP1 program, which is absent of requirements, resulting in UFOs moving customers or practices around to kick extra commissions, and the recent MPCP manipulations with unencumbered volume using the auctions. I mean, it just amazes me the length people go to beat the system when they are the system and ultimately are beating themselves. But when more than one variable is introduced into the plan, it might be things that we're trying, things that you wanted, and all we want to do is for everybody to make more money, so we go the extra mile to do that. It can affect the actuarial statistics and the resulting payout. We don't know that until we try it. That's the way actuarials work. They're based on the result from a set of circumstances. So it's difficult to determine which new variable affected the MPCP actuarially as they affect the natural UFO productivity and behavior. Over the past 10 years, the company has created many programs and promotions that were designed to make the business easier or more profitable to the field's benefit. But they're misused. Somebody finds an angle or a way to manipulate it. We never anticipate that. We just think that people are going to do things right. But it affects the actuarials, and it's difficult to tell the effect of the length of the accrual period versus the effect of the new program being abused or deviated from. So after it happens and we see that the payout change, which is a net result of the actuarial accrual programs and the MPCP math, we know something happened. We have to go back and find it and adjust it, correct it, so that it all works. And that's what we do. So every time when a correction has been made and we eliminated the suspected or observed problem, the commission payout immediately snapped back to the normal range of 62 to 65%, proving the actuarial soundness of the model. And that's the bottom line. So there's other things too. I mean, there's other factors or principles, such as the timing and reset of volume levels, the probability of perfectly timed symmetrical fill and its effect on balancing legs and the vulnerability of manipulation and symmetry. 2 legs and an apex location must be limited. If there's too many opportunities for somebody to place volume down 2 legs by trying to affect balancing with all the overlapping volume and people overlapping up the line that have a common economic benefit down below, there can be a lot of manipulation or variance that was not expected in the outcome of the payout. Natural growth is natural growth. It's just the way it happens. It's the way life is, the way people are. I don't think anybody's going to change human behavior or the timing of the randomness of life for different individuals. It's the way it is. It's reality. So natural growth and symmetry dynamics and timing affect the actuarial and the total commission payout. And every time that we see something like that, we find that it was not natural. It was manipulated, synthesized, because it just doesn't happen by human nature. So the requirements have a role in stabilization. They work as much for you as a UFO to make money. The productivity and the balancing of the actuarial equation and reconciling the MPCP mathematically is based on requirements which balance the actuarial equation of what is the probability of so many people hitting checks over what period of time. And it works perfectly. When everything's done right, it just works perfectly. So that's the landscape. That are the principles. And that's why we have to sometimes tune up the engine or overhaul the engine. So the fundamental principle, what this all comes down to, is this type of diagram. The way the business has to be built is solid from the bottom up. You can't have empty floors with no bricks. And you can't have sand in blocks in the foundation. They crumble. And it causes a structure above to basically implode or fall apart or disintegrate. So why not just do it right? We did it right from the beginning, and look at the result. So at any rate, if you look at this diagram, you work downline at the bottom level. And what is being done at the bottom level? Well, if you look across the bottom, you have each UFO that gets involved, okay, with 10 customers. They build a solid retail base. And then we get them involved in the shopping annuity because it saves them money and it really fuels the system, requiring 1/4 of the volume or 1/4 of the people, producing 4 times the volume, so the people earn checks faster. But without the retail base of customers, there is no business, because that's what makes it profitable step by step for every UFO, and then starts to compound the volume up the binary or binomial system. So we build repeat customers and new shopping annuity members, and we do meetings, and then there's requirements for everybody in the program that ensures it's solid with new volume and regenerated volume from the bottom up. And the leaders at the top are supposed to build from the bottom up and then work at the bottom level to duplicate them. So we basically go from the top down to build from the bottom up. And that's the way the plan works. So there's a lot of things that make the unfranchised very valuable. Not only do we have this system for residual income that is virtually non-existent in any other program, and residual income is usually reserved for the elite, the privileged, the rich. But here we designed a program that realistically can be built. It's not dependent on the size of your bankroll, your connections, your education, but you do have to do certain things. One of the things that makes it valuable is we have products that are the best. I mean, you can't argue that. There's people that pound down the doors to get these products, and they come back for them over and over again because they're life-changing, or they're revolutionary, or they create solutions that other things don't, and they're priced right. They're competitive. So if somebody can take away that exclusive right of the unfranchised owner to be the only person that can sell these products, we've devalued the unfranchised. And that's why we were so aggressive about the auction situation. UFOs profit first from the retail business and repeat customers. UFOs then own the customers. You know, we protect the customer, but if you don't register them, or if you want to move them around, you might become vulnerable to losing that customer to somebody. So the whole system builds regenerated and repeat volume, and that equals solid, block by block, UFO by UFO. And all the commissions are covered by 70% retail and 30% consumption, so there's no inventory loading, total compliance with regulatory law, but more important, it creates a compounding effect of residual income, which is what the plan is all about and why you're doing it. So all this stuff works together. Infinite search eliminates the need for balancing. You don't really need to balance. Eventually, somebody down that line, or you can work down that line or sponsor new down that line, is going to lead to somebody that does it. And at that point, the other volume weighted, and it's going to pay. So it overcomes the need to manipulate. Just build on the bottom level and do it solid with that set of customers. So again, here's the principles on the left that make what's on the right work, that make it solid, make it for a lifetime. So when people try to get around that, for instance, placing volume or doing activation for other people, or loading the system with unencumbered volume, all they have to do is build the activation, and sometimes those people that are activated are pure sand. They're not a block. And they don't have 10 to 15 customers. You're basically building a structure that is destined to fail. Why would somebody want to do that? It's not going to give residual income. But we need to be building from the bottom up, and what they're doing is different systems or so-called shortcuts to build from the top down rather than the bottom up. And it doesn't work. So try to understand this, okay? And look at this carefully. In order to keep residual income earning at the top, regenerated retail sales and consumption from the shopping annuity needs to be in place at the base, at the foundation. Too much downline placement works against this and weakens the foundation because it's given volume, it's synthetic volume. Somebody else did it. It's not being produced at the foundation. And so when that happens, we're weakening the structure. So it is simply something that doesn't work. Downline volume helps earn checks simply because they know it rolls back up to the top. So people put it down because they're still going to get credit for it. They didn't really do it. When more and more of that happens, you're displacing solid regeneration, accumulation, and compounding from the bottom up. Can you understand that? So it's not a good principle. It works against the principles of the plan. And when it's built correctly from the bottom up, and everyone gets 100% credit for 1 year without dilution and infinite search, there's a compounding effect from the bottom up because nobody can build outside of it. So it compounds, and it causes more and more people to earn checks, and those that are already earning to have solid checks. So if you look at the diagram here, at the bottom we're building with new recruits and new volume. But when there's no repeat sales, you have to recruit exponentially more people at that bottom line in order to support the triangle at the top, or the organization at the top, because there is no repeat or regenerated volume. It was placed downline, or they weren't real people, or they didn't build a customer base. You don't want that. That is a formula destined to fail. So the way it needs to work is the existing repeat volume from the ongoing sales continue to support the upline commissions because it's being built from the bottom up. So when you build from the bottom up, each new UFO must have retail customers which generate and regenerate volume from repeat sales, and each UFO has monthly requirements and quarterly activity requirements to ensure that if they're going to be in the game and get paid and get credit and continue benefiting from the plan, they're producing their share of volume so the equation balances. Doesn't that make sense? So when that happens and there's repeat sales, the mid-tier is already generating repeat sales. The bottom layer adds to it and secures that, and the top layer automatically has the volume. Of course, they're carrying their load too, but at each level, top layer, middle layer, and bottom layer, everybody is earning retail profits and generating volume so that you don't have to recruit exponentially larger number of people at the baseline in order to keep earning in the middle layer and the top layer. When you don't do that, you have a system that's going to crumble. I hope that you can see that. So the point is that placing BV downline basically goes against that principle. It's the reverse. It's okay for a little bit of it. It makes sense once in a while. But when it becomes prevalent and the predominant thing, it's a problem. It's a problem for winning in the business, and it could be a problem regulatorily wise because it's all unencumbered volume when it's placed. Now, true, it might become encumbered later by people selling it, but that's a difficult equation to solve or proof to make that product that got bought and wasn't sold, that was placed and everybody got credit for it, actually got sold. And if it didn't, then we got to go back and correct it, and nobody's going to like that. So that's why my examination on downline placement and limiting it in a way that's reasonable and works in the plan. So we're building it from the bottom up, and it should be sponsoring re-entries, working with people, so the volume flows from the bottom up, and the middle layer automatically gets stronger residual income stronger, more people earning, and then, of course, the top layer, if there's not retail sales to non-participants and users that repeat from the bottom up in each tier, then exponentially larger numbers of people must be recruited and at the bottom to support the commission's income of those above, and it's not truly residual. They got to keep doing it. So when the middle tier crashes, so will the top. So by placing 25% to 50% of the volume from the top generated by UFOs in the upper triangle at the bottom in downline placement of BV, you're weakening or doing the opposite of this. And that's why it's a concern. It's not a good practice. It's not necessary. So, let's get it under control. Too much of anything can cause a problem. It might feel and seem like a good thing. A little bit is okay. And there are instances where it's legitimate. But when it becomes the whole thing or the predominant thing, we got to wake up, and make some adjustments. And one of the amazing things, in my opinion, about our plan is it truly isn't multi-level. We're not redistributing products from level to level to level, and then they sell some, and they have an inventory. And the way it works, there's great incentive to buy in at inventory levels in order to earn, and it doesn't necessarily move, so you have inventory loading. This doesn't have any of that. In fact, you can have all your customers deal directly with the company, and it tracks, from the bottom up, customers to UFOs, UFOs to UFO, and no levels have to be filled out. There are no levels, so it's not multi-level. It's a tracking system, and it works very naturally. And I always tell people, imagine two reservoirs at the top of a mountain, and you open the locks. The water starts to run down. It doesn't have to cover the whole mountain. It takes the path of least resistance. Just like the movie example, people lead to people. You don't know who's going to lead to who. It just happens naturally. Same way your circle of friendship happened. You didn't structure it. You didn't have to get 4 people that knew you, and then they led you to 4 people. It just happens, right? However it happens. And that's the way the plan works. It matches reality. So the water flows down the path of least resistance, and you know that it's going to hit the lake or the river or the ocean. And when it does, you get paid. That's how it works. So why mess with it? You say you don't want to try to make it cover the whole mountain. So understand this. Market America is not MLM or network marketing. It's a tracking system that organically tracks customers to UFOs to UFO and in a binomial structure. Every position doesn't have to be filled out. Levels don't have to fill out. There's no need for symmetry. It simply organically follows the natural viral path of people leading to people and tracks their sales and accumulates them up weekly and then month to month in order to get paid. So it doesn't matter how slow it goes or how fast it goes, it accumulates, and the UFO has a year for it to catch up. It doesn't punish people who go faster. Some streams are faster, some streams are slower. And it doesn't punish people who go slower or that are unbalanced. They can always catch up. So everyone is on a different clock, and it keeps the volume in the system in the event that those above or below get paid first. But because of infinite search and vertical profitability, the accrual of BV and IBV for 52 cycles or a year and giving 100% credit to everybody in the line without dilution, one does not need to worry about downline placement. It really isn't necessary, and there's no need to force symmetry or to force balancing of legs through manipulative strategies. It works just right, perfectly the way it is. So at any rate, a few examples to really drive this point home. The business has to be built from the bottom up rather than the top down. So when we talk about strategic placement of large individual orders or extra volume from above, personal UFO requirements or repetitive smaller orders that are created and fabricated or synthesized. In other words, I see a place that we can earn, or I have a deal with this person, or I have a center there, and if I can get some volume and stick it there, it'll kick a check. Now, it's supposed to happen solid. It's supposed to happen legitimately. So look at this example. The amazing unfranchised back office makes this possible, and it was not possible before, and it's not the intention of the plan. But now that people can see it, okay, you have this situation. The benefactor is the red BDC that's going to earn checks. Now, they are legitimately in the business and building it, and they're part of a common line. And what happens when BV is placed and accrues for a whole year, it creates opportunities all the way up that line and in other lines. So other upline partners may also be placing BV or IBV downline to balance Apex BDCs to trigger commissions. So when that happens, it's just not you placing or the person above placing. It could be 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, and each situation is different where they might want to place it depending on who's going to benefit. So I hope you can understand that. But when it duplicates from the bottom up, this isn't an issue. A solid foundation must be in place to build a skyscraper or a huge organization. So every UFO that you add must do the 5 steps. That's the business, right? That's the business. And the 5 steps of the MPCP themselves, not somebody doing it for them. What does that accomplish? Okay, and retail and use product to qualify. They don't buy 200. You sell through 200, and you have to document it. And then 150 a month has to have receipts. 150 a quarter to stay active has to have receipts, and that's repeat sales. So if it's real, it's real. And when it's real, it works. So if you want it to work, make it real. So each must satisfy the requirement on their own. So obviously if somebody else is doing that for them, hoping that it'll kick more checks, maybe there's a deal, maybe they have a relative, it's just self-defeating. Okay, it weakens the whole system. So everyone works at the bottom, duplicating retail requirements, sponsoring, and the ABC pattern. And there's no shortcut to lasting success. Stop looking for tricks and phony shortcuts or ways to, quote, cheat. There's no need for it. And what downline placement does is actually invoke the law of decreasing returns. Building it right from the bottom up invokes the law of increasing returns and compounding. So when UFOs have not built 10 to 15 customer base, there is no foundation. It's built on air. And each UFO only needs 2 legs, in contrast to horizontal marketing or MLM with 10 or more. So come on. Everyone should be building and sponsoring and re-entering at the bottom. That's downline placement. So downline placement shouldn't be mainly taking BV orders and putting them down. Fatal flaws or no-nos: do not qualify for people, do not give sponsorship away, do not place BV or IBV downline in 2 legs, because all that does is end up causing somebody else to earn without contributing anything. And you cannot place unencumbered volume or BV anyway. It has to be retailed. It will be reversed later if it isn't. When it's done in 1 leg, it isn't as much as an issue. There's less vulnerability, there's less risk, and you can still accomplish what you want to accomplish. So do not keep people active. Do not place BV or IBV where you're not working or holding meetings just to satisfy somebody, and then there's expectation that comes out of it, and you got somebody that thinks that you owe them a living. So much for that. The correct way to do it is the way, and this is the way the company was built, and this is what created residual income for hundreds of people for over 15 to 20 years. And so, it obviously works. Downline placement of BV is not necessary. We didn't used to do that. Create BV downline vertically by building with someone under them, assisting them in retailing the product in the ABC pattern, HBPs, UBPs. That's downline placement. That's downline work. And that's what works. And you do it once and it duplicates, you don't got to do it again. It lasts for a long time. It lasts forever. So to balance a weaker leg, get senior partners downstream and upstream to build and sponsor in the leg at the bottom to balance it. Everyone benefits. So light a fire in the basement. Use the back office to determine where to work, to direct people to work. That's what it's for. You can see where it needs building. And by doing that, you're going to have a stronger business. Before you couldn't see it, you had to figure it out. So successful methods, that is what downline placement about, what it's really about, what it always was in the past. Downline placement of personally sponsored people. Place personally sponsored under the person instead of BV or IBV. Now you're giving them something real. There's an old saying, I guess it's a biblical saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man how to fish and you feed him for life. So why would you want to give everybody fish and feed them for a day and then have to do it again and again and again? Teach them how to fish, and then you don't need to worry about it, and it all accumulates and accrues up, making everybody have a solid business or a meal every day, if you want to use the analogy. Downline placement of re-entry is the ultimate downline placement. So we're building at the bottom level, doing the ABC pattern. People are hitting checks. You max out, then you re-enter and come down and under them to multiply your income, and everybody benefits from it because it regenerates volume over and over again and gives them a solid leg. So, what can I say? I mean, these things are obvious. For some reason, some people have migrated away from them. So the thing that you don't want to do is have downline placement in one side. If you're working there, it's okay. And that's why I say it's okay to have downline placement in one leg. But when you do it in two to earn somebody a check, all you're doing is defeating the system, weakening the system, and working against the principles. So let me give you a hyperbole so you can see an exaggerated example of how this becomes a problem. So this one is a legitimate way of doing it. I'll get to that in a minute. There are some legitimate good reasons to do downline BV placement. But how much extra BV do you have from retailing? I mean, even the best people usually don't do more than 2,500 or 1,500 or 1,000. I mean, so why is it such a big thing? It generates a lot more volume simply by working down there or sponsoring down there. How much of this BV do you have to go around? And then people have their hands out expecting it. So here's an example. I built my 1, 2, and 3, and they're earning. So you can see them at the top with the money signs in them in the circles. And I do a lot of retail. Lauren and I have a tremendous amount of retail accounts. And, so does Dennis, so does Kevin Buckman, so does Frank Kiefer. So when people have a lot of retail, they have an encumbered volume that they sold. It repeats every month. So I got in my 2 centers, it's really me doing it, 740 BV and 680, or around 1520 BV from personal retail. I got to do my minimum requirements in reentry centers and my own centers. Okay, but I still have at least, 1,000, 1,200 BV. So I am spread thin. I have these 3 centers at the top that are qualifying. I still have a management responsibility to train and coach and get in there and assist them. But I have a re-entry down now in my left leg under the 2 that has the orange circle. And I'm building that out very fast. I'm building down the right leg, I'm building down the left leg, I have branched off in one, and I have a new person that's growing. I personally sponsored them, the red BDC at the bottom. So The person that I'm working with is an emerging leader, is at that apex right above. And the volume is growing and there's business being developed down below my personally sponsored person as well as the other leg. So at the end of the month or end of this week, there's a big UBP or there's a local or regional, and I want them to get recognized and I want them to hit a check. So I have this extra volume. We're working the business, we're selling. They're just this close. They're 1,200 on one side and 940 on the other. Well, I might put that BV down in my personally sponsored center that's on transfer buying. They might not even know it. I prefer that they don't know it. I usually don't tell them, to put them over so that they get a hit, so they get a reward, so they get recognized, so they're, excited. That's when it makes sense. And that's a far cry than just loading the system. Another legitimate situation would be this. And this happens to a lot of people that have been in the business for a long time. Stuff happens. Sometimes things don't turn out the way you expected them to. So as they built their left and their right leg, the left leg took off and then it atrophied. Something happened and it kind of fizzled. It still does some volume, but their real action is under their 003. Look at the chart. So that really, in their mind, became their 001. And they're building the left and the right side of that. And so they do 1,400 retail per month. And, they have a 200 requirement for themselves. So they have over 1,000 extra. And they want to place that volume. Well, they have a personally sponsored down the right side, and they place it there. But they can't place it in a second spot, and all they want to do is earn the BV value and commissions on the product that they sold because they sell a lot more than the minimum. To me, that's legitimate. So I'm trying to find a way where that volume can be assigned so they have it on the left and the right of their 003 so that they get commission credit in that center. There's nothing, devious or undermining or diluting about that. So that's the one legitimate situation that I need to address. I haven't found a way to address. But most of the other ones are all solved by being able to place BV in one unit. So I should have clicked the slide earlier. So you can see that they would like to place 500 BV under their designated personally sponsored person that they do transfer buying with, and then put the other with the person that they're working with down below. They're building that leg. They may even have a re-entry down there. So they have 5 on the left, 5 on the right, and it contributes to their 003 being over every week. There's nothing wrong with that. It's totally different than some of the things that we've been talking about with downline placement. Let me show you how bad it can be. This is an example of a cumulative downline placement. It's just not one person placing. In this example, the red BDC or UFO is a weaker side for several UFOs, and one upline leader has a re-entry below. There's also relationships and possible strategies and deals and reciprocal trade-offs in play. Every week or periodically monthly, the upline UFOs place various amounts of volume down either one or both of the legs under the red UFO, because it doesn't matter to them if it's in the right leg or the left leg. It still accrues up to them straight up the line, because the left and right leg of the red BDC converge or apex in that center, and then it flows up to everyone. So the average combined placements are 500 to 1,000, an average of 100 to 250 BV per week placement per upline UFO. And after a couple weeks, it's all indistinguishable in the accumulation. You can't tell what was downline placed or what was generated from below. It just all combines. So it keeps adding up. After 5 to 6 months, this person hits a check or does 5 and 5. And when we look at it, all they did was their personal requirement and sponsored a couple people, and those people did 200. But 90% of the volume to do 5 and 5 was placement volume from above. So a person can actually earn a check, okay, from weekly and monthly placement from several people above that have good reason to do it, that aren't doing anything wrong. And so you see all of these green lines going down. This is where people were placing the volume. And yeah, there's a relationship. It benefits them. There's nothing wrong with downline placement the way the rules are now. And they have a legitimate reason to do it economically, but the red BDC tells them, hey, can you put it on my right? Can you put it on the left? And with all of these people placing down below, what happens? Let's take a look. The upline senior partners have a common weaker leg and personally sponsored BDCs down the leg, and one has a reentry. There are also these relationships, and over 4 to 6 weeks, there's over 4,000 BV placed per side, accumulatively. So more was done in the volume for that red center, okay, by upline placing BV downline than was generated by that red BDC's own production and the people that they brought in below them, their team. Now, how does that make any sense? Okay, I got more BV from above than I actually generated below. And so what is a fair number? 5%, 25%, 50%, 75%? I mean, 75% of somebody's volume that they earn a check on came from above. How does that make any sense? And I think it's just common sense. It weakens the whole system, and there's legal problems with it. So, you know, we got to be aware of these things. I'm not trying to make things difficult. I'm trying to make things right. So this is a hyperbole or an exaggerated situation for the purposes of illustration of the problem with downline placement of BV and IBV. But it does happen frequently in varying amounts. Not maybe that big, but it has happened that big. And it contradicts every principle of the MPCP mathematically and building-wise for lasting success. So 90% of the accrued volume came from above. That just doesn't make any sense. This is only made possible by the new powerful back office and being able to see exactly where to place volume week by week. And there's good reason for only allowing downline placement on one side. Do you agree? Do you see why? So when it all comes together, and Kevin did a great job of going over this at convention, so I'm not going to harp on it, but everything works together for a perfect result, for a lasting result. And when it's done right, it's the fastest result to earn a residual income, but it's also the lasting result. So the requirements all work to strengthen your business, to increase your income, to reinforce behaviors that have the law of increasing returns behind them. The regulatory picture matches it perfectly. So by doing the right thing for building the business, we're also doing the right thing regulatorily wise. And, you know, for the unfranchised MPCP, the way these requirements work together in the proper methodologies and retail sales building from the bottom up make the unfranchised MPCP max out and pay the fastest and most money consistently over a period of time. So it's interesting that it truly is a triangle. The company, Market America, the field and unfranchised owners, and the law or regulatory agencies all work symbiotically. In other words, one enhances or helps the other for profitability, stability, longevity, and residual income. And that's how we build the business. Now we're going to get to the fun part. I just want to quickly show you the right way, the way that we built the business, the way that I built the business. And it worked then. The proof is in the pudding. People that did it with me 25 years ago still have huge residual incomes. So do you want to do it the right way? Do you want to see how we did it? Do you want to see what has proven to work? Or do you want to go in uncharted waters and, you know, try to, by trial and error, figure out a way yourself? This is guaranteed to work.